Hi, everyone. A very warm welcome to this session of our ZIPINAR on our Let Us Talk It platform, a platform where we aim to have an empowered and informed community. How do we do that? We invite speakers. Will that do the work? Yes, it does much of the work. Why? Because speakers, counselors, they come with their own, their knowledge, their stories, and that helps us to motivate the community. That helps us to spread the word that yes, it is possible that if we talk and then work on those aspects, we can make an empowered and informed community. And we do these webinars, we call them ZIPINARs because we try to put in 2 or 3 topics in one webinar. And then we have the time that you spend on this platform, you get the best of whatever the topics that we are discussing. So if you want to be part of our team, then please email us at webinar@letustalkit.com, and you'll get to know all the information. And even we think about the future, and that's why we have our youth sessions, youth public speaking sessions to be very specific. And the youth, we have 2 groups, younger youth group and older youth group, and they talk on topics that they decide. And some topics are weird, some topics are great, some topics are silly, but trust me, they have formed a community of their own, and they love to join these prep sessions, and then they go live. For the older youth group, they go live every Saturday at 4 p.m. EST. This week also, they are coming live at 4 p.m. with a topic, funny but interesting, hybrid animals. So please join us. The Zoom link is same, and we welcome all of you who have joined in on our social media platform. Please do interact by commenting, or you can join the Zoom link and interact with our panel, with our speakers. So for today's webinar, we have 2 very interesting and diversified topic, but it will help you in your empowerment for sure. The first topic we have is confident communication and presentation style. So sometimes we are confident in our communication, but when it comes to presenting, which is very important these days, we try to shy off. So if it is an opportunity at work, or if it is, if you have to put your point firmly across, then you have to know how to communicate and present. And so this presentation and discussion will be given by Tina Shah, who is the CEO of Dynamic Training Institute, a premium training academy focused on empowering individuals and teams globally by providing skills essential to their personal and professional growth and success. And in her extensive and diverse career in the US and India, she has assisted over 5,000 people in overcoming their self-limiting beliefs and equipping them with skills such as public speaking, personality development, startups, and several other value-based courses. And they have been always conducting training, seminars, speaking engagements at established educational institutions such as Symbiosis, Balaji College, Army Public School, Indian School of Business and Finance, National Insurance Association, Bharatiya Vidyapeeth, and many more. So without any further ado, let's welcome Tina Shah. Absolute pleasure to have you on this platform. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the kind introduction. I'm happy to be here. Can everybody hear me okay? If you can't hear me, I have my chat open. So if you can just quickly write to me if there's any technical glitch, and I'll take care of it. So the first thing I wanted to do was, I know we only have 20 minutes. So the first thing I wanted to do was let you know that I am extremely excited to be here. The speed that I will be speaking with is a little bit faster because I'm going to try to cover as much as I can and give you as much information and ammunition that I can about communication in the next 20 minutes. So the first thing I want to do, however, is to thank the team, the Let Us Talk team, for inviting me. That includes Jilan, of course, and then Phil John that coordinated everything as well. I had the pleasure of speaking with Jilan on the phone, and it was really a pleasant surprise to know that she practically is where my family is right now. We're in West Bloomfield and stuff, so many of you guys are there. And then, of course, Srini Tonta, I really appreciate you creating this initiative and having speakers like us over here. So thank you for the Let Us Talk It team for having me here. I wanted to go ahead and speak about confident communication and presentation, simply because of the fact that these are the things that many people, whether they're children or they're adult, they struggle with. But what happens is when you are kids, you're able to say to people, okay, I'm struggling with this skill. I'm struggling with this information. As we get into our adulthood, what happens is that the means of finding resources becomes smaller and smaller, though we have a plethora of information at our fingertips. The irony of it is that we are no longer as confident to find that information and to seek help. So one of the main reasons we want to become the kind of confident communicator and presentation expert is simply because a communication style determines so many things that happen in our lives, whether it is our career, whether it is our professional life, everything is affected by communication. When we don't have the kind of confidence or the skill, and communication and public speaking is just a matter of skill. It's a matter of practice. Anybody can do it. I wasn't born a speaker. In fact, when I first started doing these webinars, and I'm in person, right? I do large seminars and then some classes and those kind of things. So I wasn't used to doing this entire virtual thing, because at the most, the virtual I was doing was with my out of country clients, and that was it. I wasn't doing presentations the way I used to when I was doing it in an auditorium. So again, that also required skill. So if you're sitting here thinking that, you know, presentation and communication and public speaking is not my cup of tea, I want you to know that it is a learned skill. You don't need to be intimidated by it. But what you do need to understand is it has a large impact on your life, whether it is in your professional life or your personal life. For instance, statistically, they say that about 67% of people at some point in time, right, go to interviews or do sales or whatever, and they are unable to get the end results simply because they're unable to make eye contact and have the right tone of voice. It's not so much as what you're saying, but it's more how you're saying it. So when you have people that are presenting, and as we grow into our corporate world and we climb up the corporate ladder, whether it is we are our own boss or we are working with an entire team of people, communication becomes one of our cornerstones. Now, Cogent IBS's 3 pillars are what? It is basically to have clarity, it is to have creativity, and then to have connectivity, right? Now I'm going to add another pillar to that, and that is communication. Because we can have creativity, we can have clarity, and we want to connect. However, it is our communication that will get us to that. Now, how do we do that? It is very simple. First, we must make a commitment that we want to become better at any skill. Whether it is communication, whether it is underwater basket weaving, it doesn't matter. First, you must make a commitment that you want to build upon the skill that you already have a thirst for. Then you must find the right people to help you get there. Whether it is you attend a class, whether it is you watch a webinar, whether it is you read a book, you must find the right people to give you information. If you go to YouTube, you will find a lot of, and excuse me, but a lot of crappy public speaking teachers. And they're teaching you all the wrong things. So the second thing is we must seek the right information from the right people. The other part is that you must also understand that when 39% of the people admit that at some point in time they lack confidence, they lack the right tone of voice, they lack the right eye contact, that impact builds up over time. When we are networking, when you are in the corporate world, whether you are working with a small team of people, whether you are working with a whole stack full of clients, your communication skills will have a huge impact. For instance, about 10 to 15%, according to NASCOM, 10 to 15% of the people will state that either they have not gotten a promotion or they have turned down a promotion because it entails presentation in front of other people. 10% of people's paycheck is affected by how they communicate. And why is that? Because if I expect people to speak with my client as a boss, right, I'm going to expect them to know how to communicate properly. So you might have clarity, you might have creativity, we want to connect, but we're also going to have to learn to communicate properly. Given that, there are also about 10%, and according to NASCOM, where 10% of the wages are affected. Your salary, about 10% of it is affected based on what kind of work you do, based on your communication. So again, the impact is far and wide of communication. It's not just a matter of I'm afraid to speak in front of a crowd, and so therefore I will not do this presentation. I'll ask somebody else to do it. The impact is far and wide. So how would you go ahead and learn? What are the benefits? Well, you'll have confidence. You will be able to rechange and rearrange your career. You would be able to communicate better in your personal life. And you get to decide and recreate who you become, a confident communicator and presentator. So now what do? I want to be able to, before I take off, I wanted to be able to give you some practical tips. It's all well and good. We understand that communication is extremely important, but how do we learn to communicate? Well, first and foremost, you must make a decision that you want to learn a skill. If I want to learn scuba diving, I'm going to have to learn to dive into the waters. I'm going to have to learn the skill of being able to use my equipment. I'm going to have somebody that has to teach me. I'm going to have to make a commitment that no matter what, I'm willing to learn these skills. So you're going to have to make that commitment. The second, as I told you, you need to find the right person, the right book, the right place to learn this communication. And then on your own, if you have a presentation at work, the steps you can take are very simple. In order to pick a topic, if you don't already know what your topic would be, you can write down 10 topics and then think about the pros and cons of each topic and then pick one. The second thing would be, once you know your topic, once you've decided your topic, you need to research. So the best way to research, instead of just doing Google, where, I will start off wanting to give let's say, a speech on, the culture of Afghanistan. And all of a sudden I'm Googling the culture of Afghanistan and maybe even what is going on in Afghanistan. And all of a sudden then I'm doing Google, pages open, and all of a sudden, what kind of makeup are they wearing in Afghanistan, right? And I'm lost. So you must write down your points of what you need to research so you do not get lost in the world, the wide world of Google. The second point, after you have researched now, from your research, you must write your outline. Write your outline of what you want to do in the presentation. What most people, when they're doing a presentation at the corporate level, what they do is they open up a PowerPoint presentation and they start writing. Now you're staring at a blank thing, just like David is obviously a really established author. I've started to write a book and stuff. And I know for a fact, and David will probably agree to this, staring at the white piece of paper or a PowerPoint slide is probably the biggest torture you can do to yourself. So write down an outline based on your research of what you want in your PowerPoint. Then write down your PowerPoint, slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, based on your outline, and then pretty it up. Don't start working with your fonts. Don't start working with your bullet points. Pretty it up afterwards so you are not overwhelmed. And then practice, practice, practice. If you think that you can get away from practicing, no matter who you are, no matter how many speeches you have given, you are setting yourself up for struggles. I practice, here's my little secret, what most people don't do. So I teach public speaking, right? So I practice 2-minute impromptu speeches 10 times a day. I have done that for the last 30 plus years since I was in high school on the debate team. And I have done that every single day. I can't recall a day when either I have not read, even when I was in the hospital with my children, and when I have not practiced my 10 speeches for 2 minutes, even before I became a professional speaker. And I still do that. In fact, as I was getting ready, in my mind, sometimes I might not practice it out loud because I'm doing my makeup or hair or whatever. In my mind, I'm practicing. So practice is one of the biggest ammunition you have, your tool, your skill that you have in order to become successful. The other thing that you might want to consider is reading a lot. What reading does is it gives you a grasp on the finer linguistics. Okay, reading allows you to understand not just the language and the written word, but it also allows you to have critical thinking skills. It helps you to analyze things. So when you're a communicator and when you're presenting and somebody says, okay, I do have a question, you don't freeze, because now you are confident on your critical thinking skills, your analytical skills, and of course your presentation skills. So the things that you need to consider is that you must build a foundation in order to become skilled at anything. Like for instance, would you believe that I am SAP certified? When I was going to become a project manager and stuff, SAP was one of the things that I had taken. I had taken courses in SAP and I became SAP certified. And here's the thing, I never practiced. I never ever touched SAP again. So now if you even opened up anything in front of me, I would grow blank. I wouldn't know anything. Why? Because I had that knowledge, but I don't have the practice in order to recall that knowledge, in order to be able to be good at that knowledge. Some of you that work with SAP, right? You know for a fact that in the beginning, coding, working on it, doing all of those things, it was very confusing. I know at least it was for me. Yet after practice, when you have protege, you're able to say, oh, that's easy. Open up this, open up that, write that. This is the code. Yeah, put that. So that's part of practice. Anything that we want to become good at is practice. So now I want you to start thinking about where is the difference in communication between employer and employees, okay? So for instance, when it comes to communication, although so many people, 39% of the people don't feel confident in presentation, they still, 79% still believe that I'm a pretty good communicator. I communicate well at work. And here's what the employer is thinking. Employer is thinking only 42% are good at communication. Yet 79% of the employees believe that they're good at communication. So now we have a huge communication gap, ironically. The other part is that for leadership, 78% of the people believe, the employees believe, they have leadership skills. Yet only 33% of their employers believe they have leadership skills. Why? Because leadership is also based on proper communication. Nobody's going to follow you. Nobody's going to really respect being on your team if you can't be an open communicator that they can come to and you can present and speak with them with impact. Then you have about 80% of the people that believe, employees believe, they have critical thinking skills, problem solving skills. And yet only 56% of employers believe that the employees have those skills. Communication will teach you critical and analytical skills. because you will learn to think on the spot. Communication will make you a much better leader. And communication will have a 10% impact on your promotion. It will have a 10% impact on your wages. It will have about 15% impact actually on your promotion and 10% on your wages and your networking skills. Networking skill is another thing that you might want to consider practicing. How do you network? You basically value the other person. That's it. You're not there to make connections so that you can use them later. Networking, when you meet people, you genuinely value the other person and you feel that they're important. And you communicate with them and you ask them questions and you genuinely listen to them. So the last thing I want to leave you with is the one thing everybody could become better at, including and especially me, and that is our listening skills. We need to learn to become better listeners so that we can assign value to the people that we are communicating with, and then build our communication based on a relationship that is now based on respect, value, and mutual communication. So I hope that I was able to give you some tips. I know that I went rather fast. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at any given time. When you go ahead and get the workbook has a lot more details. So I wanted to cover things like your body language. So really quickly, I'll tell you about your body language and stuff. Notice how even on a webinar, I'm using my hands, but I'm not making huge grand gestures, okay? Because we're not on stage. So my hand gestures must be subtle, yet I'm still making hand gestures. I'm not frozen. I'm not sitting like this, okay? So your body language needs to be open and communicative as well. Notice I'm making eye contact. Am I looking at my notes? Absolutely, I have my notes. I'll admit it. I'm getting old, I'm forgetting, okay? So I got my notes. Every now and then you'll see me glancing, but I look up and I make eye contact with you because now we're in a virtual world. What will you do? So I gotta make eye contact with you. Eye contact is extremely important. Your tone of voice, think of your tone of voice as going up and down in those old amplifiers that we used to have, right? Those stereo systems that we used to have. So tone of voice, eye contact, and your open body language and hand gestures. The workbook has a lot more details. We've added, just for you guys, we've added the details of body language, tone of voice, all of that, because I wouldn't be able to cover everything in 20 minutes. So I hope that I was able to impart something of value to you today. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the entire Cogent IBS team having me here. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to contact me or my team, and we will be more than happy to go ahead and assist you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina Shah, for the wonderful talk. I'm Apurva. I'm also part of Let Us Talk It. And it was really interesting. And I'm sure all of us learned a lot about how to have that confidence, how to speak out, how to be more, I think, I want to say more appealing too. I think confidence is appealing to the people you're trying to make a message to. It just gets things through. So I think that's really important and very wonderful hearing from you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.
Yes, absolutely. Our pleasure. So now we go to our second speaker of the day today, and the topic is talent retention. So we have David Alemian, if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry.
Alemian.
Alemian. Okay, got it. And he is extremely experienced in talent retention. How do you keep talent? How do you keep your employees or whoever you work with, right? How do you keep them with you? And he has published over 200 articles and appeared in over 300 videos for publications such as the MD Magazine, Physicians Money Digest, eHow, and the O-Side News. And he's also authored a book called Talent Retention: How to Attract and Retain Highly Skilled Professionals. And he can help anyone looking for this in innovative strategies that is guaranteed to attract and retain very highly skilled talent within companies. So we are very excited to hear about that. I'm sure our CEO is very, excited to hear about that. So over to you.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. I really appreciate this. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. See if I can do this.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Okay. And let me do this and this. Okay. Can we all see this? We see our screen here?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I'm David Alemian, and my company is called Talent Retention Plans. And we provide employers with powerful tools that are literally guaranteed to retain your key employees for many years to come. And our clients also use what I'm going to show you today to acquire new skilled talent as their company grows. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time to view this webinar and spend time with me here today. So to show my appreciation, I'm going to give everyone a complimentary copy of my book. And talent retention, how to attract and retain highly skilled professionals. And I'll show you how to get that at the end when we're all done. Okay, so employers have a problem. They're facing the tightest skilled labor market in 50 years. There aren't enough people with skills to go around. We've raised a generation of unskilled talent. For the first time in history, there are more job openings than there are applicants to fill them. Even during this pandemic, with those millions of jobs lost, most of those jobs were unskilled labor. Yes, some people with skills did lose their jobs, but that's because maybe their company went belly up, but they found new work right away. The people with skills, they kept their jobs, albeit the biggest change for them, a lot of them are working remotely. So what does that mean? That means anyone with skills who wants a job already has one, which means that when a company has a crucial position to fill, the only place they can find someone is to go lure them away from another company. And then that company, now they have the problem. It's a never-ending cycle. And if you think it's bad now, it's going to get a lot worse. It's been going on steadily, the talent shortage, for 20 years. It has hit all professions and trades, legal profession, accounting, engineering, industry. Our two biggest industries, healthcare and technology, have been hit so hard. According to the Association of Medical Colleges, they've estimated that the U.S. will be short somewhere between 59,000 and 139,000 physicians in the next decade. And the tight skilled labor market is known as the talent shortage. In the tech industry, it's known as the tech gap. Now, this problem is not going to go away very soon. I mean, unfortunately, the talent shortage, this shortage of skilled labor, will go on at least until 2050 and beyond. But here's the good news. I'm going to show you in a few minutes exactly how you as an employer or employers can overcome talent shortages and literally have people standing in line, top talent, standing in line to work for your company. Now, the problem for employers. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, the cost to replace a highly educated employee earning $100,000 and up is 213% of salary. That means somebody earning $100,000, and that's the floor, it costs $213,000 to replace them. Somebody earning, say, $250,000, $250,000, and there's a ton of them in the professions and in healthcare and in the executive suites. It costs $532,500 to replace that individual. And in other words, it's literally more than double their salary to replace someone. And according to the Department of Labor, the average U.S. worker changes jobs every 4.6 years. In the C-suite, a little longer, between their 5 and 6 years, depending on their position in the C-suite. But here's what that means. It means that companies have to be proactive to prevent their best talent from leaving. Otherwise, sooner or later, another company will lure them away. So the big question is, how do you keep people, how do you prevent people from quitting? The answer is, you give them a huge incentive to stay. The fact is, in today's tight labor market, companies have no choice but to give their key employees a big incentive to stay. Why? Because without it, other companies are going to give you an incentive to leave and go with them. But is it worth it? Absolutely. Remember, your key employees are the most valuable asset that any company has. I mean, take away a company's key employees and what do they have? Not very much. Now, a good retention plan will make it literally impossible for another company to lure away your best employees. Now, I'm not talking about just any type of retention plan, but when I said, is it worth it? A good retention plan is literally 80% less than the cost of turnover. Now, you can go online and you can find countless articles and blogs from so-called retention consultants. And they'll blog and write articles about how to retain employees. And you'll see things written about employee engagement and flex time and training and better pay and meaningful work and corporate culture. And all of those things are good, but, and this is a big but, none of those things ties the employee to the company. Any other company could come along, offer them the same thing and a little more because nobody expects someone to make a lateral move, and it'll lure that person away. I mean, what happens to the employer? The employer is stuck with no employee to fill that position, and they're facing huge turnover costs. It's frustrating, and it's costly. Oh, half a minute ago, I mentioned corporate culture, which is a big thing these days. It's very tough to maintain corporate culture when turnover is high. Actually, turnover can literally destroy corporate culture. So the bottom line is, employers have a problem. They can't find the people they need, and those that they can find, they can't hold on to them. On the other hand, employees, they have a different problem. They can't afford to retire. Now, not everybody, but most people live a lifestyle equivalent to their income. You got a $50,000 income, you got a $50,000 lifestyle. Got a $500,000 income, you have a $500,000 lifestyle. Between the house, the cars, the kids in private school, the vacations, the country clubs, and all that stuff, it costs that person about $20,000 a month to live. Well, let's do the math. You got $500,000 in income. Uncle Sam comes along and takes his share. What's left? $250, maybe? Not even in my state or some other states. What's 20,000 times 12? 240,000. What's left? Nothing. They're living paycheck to paycheck. It's just a bigger paycheck. They have lots of lifestyle, but very little savings. To the outside world, they look like they have it made and the world in the palm of their hand. But in reality, they're mortgaged up to here and they have very little savings. And you know when they realize they're in trouble? Usually, it's somewhere between their mid-40s, early 50s. It depends on at what age they started having kids. What does that got to do with it? You want to know? Well, they write that first college tuition check for their first kid's college education and realize they have a whole bunch more of those checks to write. And whatever little savings they have, gone. Remember, these are highly educated employees. These are highly educated people. Education is important to them. So their kids are going to schools, to colleges and universities. And they're going to the better colleges and universities. And they're not just going to get a 4-year degree. They're going for master's degrees and PhDs and doctorates and medical degrees. So they have a problem. Now, so what happens? Well, that's not really a good thought to have. That, in other words, when that alarm goes off in their head, they realize they're in trouble. And you know what that alarm says? that alarm says, I'm 45 years old. I have nothing saved. I've been working for the last 20 years. I got zero. How on earth am I going to work in the next 20 years by the time I'm 65 to be able to save enough money to be able to stop working and maintain my lifestyle? Can't do it. So here we have two groups. Each has a problem. Now, there was a time in history when people spent their entire career at one, maybe two companies. Did you see the little hands shaking? That's a company and an employee shaking hands and working together. So, why did they work so long? Because they wanted their lifetime pension back when they had pension plans. And employees would work as long as it took to get it because they wanted a future of financial security. And back then, companies, they were loyal to their employees. They valued those employees. And to protect their retirement benefits, they would promote from within. And that way, an employee could rise up the ranks through their career, and they would rise up in stature and title and in income, albeit it's with the same company, but they would be at the pinnacle of their career. And the employees, they were loyal to the company. Why? Because they saw their financial future and financial security with that company. And both groups worked together. It was wonderful. But what happened? 1978 is what happened. Congress, in all its wisdom, decided that Americans weren't saving enough of their own money. Yes, they had their pensions and they had their Social Security. But there were those in Congress that thought Americans should be saving some of their own money. And to give them an incentive to save, they gave them a tax break. And they called it the 401k. And by the early 80s, the 401k became the fastest growing retirement plan in America. And Wall Street saw an opportunity. And they went ahead and they went forward and they sent an army of people out to the employers, and they sold these 401ks to the employers. They said, give your employees this 401k and you can get rid of funding those big expensive pension plans. And the employers said, wow, this is great. We can get rid of those costly pension plans. And they went ahead and sold it to the baby boomers because that was the first generation that was getting those 401ks. And the baby boomers and the employers told the baby boomers, if you don't want to work here anymore, you can work for us. We'll give you a 401k, and when you leave, you can take it with you. You don't have to work cradle to grave like your parents. I mean, that's what they called it back then. It didn't even sound good. And the baby boomers bought it like a school of fish, hook, line, and sinker. And they said, wow, this is great. If we don't want to work for this employer anymore, we can leave. We can take our retirement plan with us. We can hop from company to company and go wherever we want. Both groups shot themselves in the foot. And here's why. Here we are a little over 40 years later, and most Americans can't afford to retire. Why? Because the average 401k runs out of money in 12 to 14 years. That's why. And employee turnover used to be almost zip, almost nothing. I mean, either somebody died, passed away prematurely, or they retired, and they knew when the retirement date was. They could plan for the retirement. And turnover costs skyrocketed to the point where it's one of the biggest costs in a company. It's a hidden cost, and it is absolutely huge. So what do we do with all this information? My company creates something called a SERP, Supplemental Executive Retirement Plans, that the employer pays for fully, and it's better than a pension. It provides lifetime tax-free income to the employee, income that can be literally equivalent to the net income, after-tax income of the employee, of today's working employee. And the employer pays for it, and it's fully funded on day one, unlike some pension plans which go unfunded. The employer only asks for one thing, a vesting period, a cliff vesting period. And what does that mean? It means the employee and the employer come to an agreement. The employee will work for, say, the next 10 years. And then there's a date. And then the employee gets the benefit. If the employee fails to complete the vesting period, and it doesn't have to be 10 years, it can be less, or it can be longer, whatever it is. And it can be a different vesting period for different employees at the same company. This is very, very flexible. So if the employee leaves early, the employee walks away empty-handed. And the money that the employer invested into the company stays with the company. So we take away most of the risk. All right. So what does this thing look like? Well, or how do we do it? One more piece before I get to that. Bank financing. You see, unlike, this is how it makes it affordable. You see, the employer has full discretion over who receives the benefit. Unlike a 401k, if you give it to one employee, you have to give it to offer it to everyone. Here, he can pick and choose, she can pick and choose who gets this benefit. So they could have 200 employees, but maybe a core group of 20. Maybe it's the senior executives in the C-suite and maybe all of the engineers. Or if it's a hospital, maybe it's the C-suite executives and it's the physicians. It's the people that they absolutely can't afford to lose. All right, so that just lowered the cost huge. But let's make it even better. This plan is so safe and secure because it's built on a life insurance policy, not some mutual fund that goes up and down with the market. It's a life insurance policy with guarantees. It's so safe and secure that banks will actually lend money on it. It's one of the safest loans that a bank can make because it's collateralized by the cash in the plan. Banks love that. If you buy a building, banks hate that. Why? Because the building's the collateral. They're not in the real estate business. They're in the cash business. And this is a loan that's funded with cash. So literally, for pennies on the dollar, the employer can have millions going into a retirement benefit for their key employees, tying those employees instantly to the company. Here's what it looks like. This is an actual illustration of a 40-year-old key employee. Could be, who knows, could be a software person. Anyway, it starts at employees at 100,000 and up. So I showed the smallest one, just to be conservative. And in this case, if you look over here, the employer puts $55,000 into a life insurance policy in the first year, borrows the money from the bank. And it's a 3% interest rate. So all the employer had to do was come up with $1,684 to pay the interest. And he does this each year for the next 10 years. So notice he has to pay more interest each year because he has to pay the interest from the previous years. At the same time, over here at the end, there's a death benefit that, by the way, in the early days, before the vesting period is complete, the employer owns the policy, which means the employer is the beneficiary of the policy, or the employer could make the employer beneficiary and the employee, and they can split it. Or however it is, whatever agreement that they make, there are no real rules. It's very flexible. All right, so we continue through this, and in year 10, they stop contributing to the plan, yet the money keeps growing. And here's where it's growing over here. In year 14 of the plan, the employer takes out a lump sum from this column on the right and pays off the bank. He's paid $178,500 in interest over a 13-year period. But look what happened. During these 10 years where the employee committed to stay with the company, they saved $463,043 in turnover costs. Subtract the interest paid for the loan, and the employer saved $284,535 over turnover costs. But look what the employee gets over here. In this column here where it says annual income, lifetime tax-free income, this employee gets a $60,000 tax-free income for life. Now remember, the employee was only making $100,000. So after taxes, that employee is probably netting maybe 70 some odd thousand, depending on what state they live in and what their tax bracket is. Add their Social Security in, and now they're making $90,000 plus. They're literally netting more income in retirement than in their working years. So what does this look like if we do a group of these employees? Because maybe we have 200 employees and 20 that we want to have in a group. Here's a group of 20 employees. They're all age 40 in this illustration. That won't happen in real life. Some will be older, some will be younger. But the employer does the same thing and borrows, in this case, a little over $1 million. Pays $33,000 in interest to tie 20 employees, key employees, to his company. The turnover cost that he got rid of was over $9 million here, the 10-year turnover cost. Subtract that from the $3.5 million or so in interest, and this employer saved $5.6 million. And here's the money coming out over here. That's divided between the 20 employees. But what if we have a physician? This is an actual illustration from one of my clients, by the way. and this was a physician, had a $600,000 income. He was a gastroenterologist. Or it could be an executive in a company with a $500,000 salary and a bonus or whatever. But anyway, here's the point. The company in this case borrows $325,000 to put in over a 7-year period. Here they pay interest, and they wanted to make it even. Like I said, there's no rules here. We can divide. This can be designed to suit the needs of the employer and the employee. So in this case, the employer wanted a level payment of $40,000 for 10 years. It's what they were willing to commit to tie this employee to the company. The total interest paid was $400,000. And they asked a 10-year commitment from the employee. So they mitigated $1.7 million in turnover costs. Subtract the $400,000 from that, and that employer saved $1.3 million in turnover costs. But look at this over here. This employee, where it says lifetime tax-free income, at age 65 has a little over $400,000 in lifetime tax-free income. You know, if you're trying to recruit someone, that's a pretty tough thing to say, we're going to pay you a competitive salary just like everybody else. We're going to give you everything, but we're going to give you one more thing that no one else is going to give you. We're going to give you a $400,000 in tax-free income for life. That's a pretty hard thing to say no to. And if you're working for a company and your company provides you with that, that's a really tough thing to walk away from. So when another company comes looking for your employees to lure them away, there's no way that they're going to do that, because every year that employee is vesting is another year that they've got more skin in the game, and they know the carrot at the other end. So that's how this all works. If you have questions, feel free to email me. I told you I'd give you a copy of my book. So to get a copy of my book, all you need to do is just text your email address to my phone number right here, 760-707-4797. And I'll send you, I will email you a copy of my new book. It'll be an e-book copy with flip pages. It opens up just like a book. It'll look great. And if you have questions about anything that we talked about today, feel free to email me at David@Talent Retention Plans, and I'll answer any questions that you have. And if you're an employee, I'll answer your questions that you would want to know from an employee's perspective. And if you're someone in the C-suite, you need to know how to keep your employees. This book will show you exactly what I talked about in more detail, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So I want to thank you. I hope I didn't go too far over my time, but happy to have shared with you today. Thank you so much.
No, not at all. It was our pleasure to listen, and very, very informative. And I'm sure a lot of people, I believe we have a couple of people in our audience who are even looking to start a business. So I think this will really help them how to, get good personnel and keep them. So very, very interesting. Thank you for speaking. And yes, so I think if we have any questions from the audience at all, maybe we can just take a minute. If not, I guess we could call it a day.
Yeah, thank you, David. Definitely, I think, there are some points to ponder about, and then we'll definitely get in touch with you and Tina and team for synergies, based on the Let Us Talk It network, wherever, we can mutually work together and it is mutually beneficial.
Terrific. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute. Otherwise, we can conclude. Okay, sounds good. Then I think we can call it a day. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Say everybody. Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.